Hey, Quants, this is take two since I didn't have my microphone out and I went for about 5 minutes before I realized. So just wanted to start off with mentioning the kind of joke app that I put out on April Fools. I'll probably just leave that up for fun and maybe share it here and there, but I'm only mentioning it because I still get a kick out of these jokes. So if you want to get a good laugh, I think this could help you find some funny jokes. And it is jess.quantalchemy.io. There's no money in this or anything. I do have a couple of small CTAs down towards the bottom, but it's just a link to Quant Alchemy and Crown Quant Alchemy, and I talk about those all the time anyway. So nothing. If you've been around here and you're just now hearing about this, there's nothing new there for you other than to get a good laugh, maybe. All right, jumping back over to what I had done before, which was the economic calendar. And so with the economic calendar, we've got the core inflation rate coming in this week. And so there's a potential for a catalyst there, a news catalyst. It's not something I think will amount to much, if anything, until we see some kind of a conclusion to the events going over in Iran there. But there's still potential for some small or short-term price movement there. Again, I think the Fed is kind of in a position right now where they can't really do much either direction, and I think that's probably going to remain the case until we see a conclusion to what's going on over in Iran. But going back to the charts now, where I was, and I will go back to Bitcoin just to cover over that. And so with Bitcoin, I'm going to hide the spring equinox stuff, but I do want to kind of keep it up just for a little bit until we get into the beginning of May, just to see if it ever does play out. Obviously, right now, I think we already saw the failure of that particular trade. There is a potential for another trade setting up if we get above this failure line. That's would not be the trigger I'm looking for. I'd be really looking for a trigger holding above the 74K range here, and then I would expect that we might get a play up to around $80,000 if we do that. And so, however, I think if we just get above this where we fell before 70K, there's a good chance we could challenge back up to 74K again. I wanted to mention, I'll just mention that I do still have that diagonal line on there, which looks like it's holding as resistance. We also had that resistance support line, which is currently resistance now, holding as resistance. And so I mentioned before, it looked like we might get a break above there, and then we just got knocked down below. Depending on if you're drawing this on closures or wicks, you could argue that this is still being kind of held down by that. Looks like it's just pushing up a little bit right now. And so it's too gray, in my opinion, to be able to just draw this up to closures and then say, oh, look, it's actually being resistance there. I mean, and at that point, you're so close to the support resistance line, you might as well use that one, in my opinion anyways, because that would be a stronger indicator than the diagonal line here. So, however, yeah, that's it. And so back to what I had just been showing, which was something I don't normally go over much or ever really, is super. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I do hold some super. I've had some super for quite a long time. Part of that is because I've been following Leo Trade's content for a long time, and I was interested in the project. I mean, I'm a developer. I do a lot of building things, and I like the fact that he's working on that kind of stuff. And so beyond the content that he puts out, I like to hear about the things that he's building and see how that stuff is evolving. And because of that, I did have a master strategy alert up there. So I saw that the 821 cross had occurred. It didn't stick because it happened during the day today. That was an intraday alert, but these will repaint. And right now it dropped off of where it was for the high. And so all that said, I wanted to come in here and check it out and see where it went. It was up 30% on the day, which obviously is pretty large, pretty big for any asset. But I mean, it was quite a bit up more than that, probably close to 60-ish% or something at the top of the candle here. And then I also wanted to mention just the volume. So it's not the highest volume that we've ever seen, but it is significantly higher than the moving average on the volume and the typical volume candles that we do see. However, I will also note that in most cases when we see those high volume candles, most of those did not, back here, I mean, this is 2023, we just like kicking off some of that bull cycle stuff. For the last cycle, it did result in upside, but beyond that, most of these high volume candles later had resulted, the ones that really stick out here, like this one and this one, they didn't result in any significant price movement upwards. But however, they can be indicative, of course, of accumulation at this point. And I would definitely call it accumulation at this point because the asset is so depressed. I don't think we're looking at distribution at this point. And then I also just wanted to mention on the oscillators, we did have bullish divergence building up. I didn't catch that because I wasn't watching it. It looks like the oscillator on the MACD is pointed up. We have a potential for getting another two green. Today would be the first green histogram. If we get another histogram, and then we have stochastics pointing up, that would all look good for continuation. However, we got to get kind of breakout above these ranges here. We did get the typical Gann swing buy signal, just breaking out of the highs here. However, that just also put the trend into a uncertain range right now. So for this to actually turn the Gann swing trend up, we're going to need to see a lower high, or a high, not a lower high, a higher low, and then a higher high occur before we switch that trend up. And so anyways, I just want to throw that out there because that popped up on my radar, and it's not something I'd been mentioning, but for other people that might be following this for crypto or interested in those kind of things, that one looks like it might be interesting to watch in the short term, short to midterm, I'll say. Let's go back and just do a real quick look at gold. Gold kind of that looks like it, you know, I mentioned it was going to look like it was going to range here, and ultimately it looks like what happened here. I don't have any lines drawn here, but what it looks like to me has happened is we did lose some support around this area, and it just came up, and it looks like it's retested. We touched the 200s. I mentioned that would have been the traditional buy signal. At this point, if it were me, I probably would be taking profit because it looks like it's touched where we kind of had some range there. One thing that might be useful to put on here is the volume profile, which I'm not doing right now, but I'm guessing you probably have a node of volume right here. And then additionally, it just looks like this is an area of where we had some support and resistance, and it looks like it just kind of bounced off of that. So looks like, you know, gold's got a little bit of work to do. If it's going to go up, I think, you know, it could go down a little bit farther and just set in a higher low and then keep going. But then you could also just use your traditional Gann swing strategy and wait for the break above this pivot high to take another position if you wanted to do that. So, not much going on with gold other than that. Looks like it might be getting rejected here, but we'll see how that plays out. And then let's just jump over to silver. Silver doesn't look like it's been doing anything. Yeah, it's just kind of dying out here slowly again, staying under most of the, looks like it's kind of hung under, catching some resistance here, similar to gold. So same idea. I mean, we're going to have to see this breakthrough if it's going to get any more momentum. So I don't think silver and gold are looking too interesting at this point right now. I think the last thing, just because I'm going through the charts, I just want to take a look at SPY real quick. SPY. So this looks, man, this one doesn't look too good, honestly. And the reason I say that is because if I'm looking at just the master strategy here, the way that I would be looking at macro trends to end is they're going to basically see this 821 break to the downside, which it did. We just blew right through the 200s. We didn't even get a bounce on the 200s, and it fell through, and then it comes back up and it tests the 200s as resistance, and then it gives up that as it basically gets stalled out on resistance here and then continues down further. So that doesn't mean that has to happen, obviously, but that's the thing that I would be looking for. Macro time frame, we had that rolling top, which could, tends to look like distribution. So, again, going back to some of the stuff going on in Iran, if that stuff comes to a conclusion, then I think there's definitely a chance for this to just break out and continue going back up. And that would probably throw a lot of people off sides, because I think at this point it's looking pretty obvious like this is going down. And so, yeah, SPY's not looking so good right now. Yeah, seasonality wise, it looks like we normally see our dips around here anyway. So still definitely see a potential for some upside. Maybe see some upside until we get until May-ish time frame, and then as usual I'd expect it to kind of like hold flat or die out until sometime between July and September, if we're just looking at seasonality type stuff. So well, I guess that's going to be it for today. I think I got through everything that I want to get through. So hope everybody had a good weekend, and if you celebrate Easter and do that stuff, I hope you all got to enjoy some time with family as I did. I always like doing that stuff, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace, Quants.